Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Gregory, and my topic is gun control in USA, the right democratic way or the biggest mistake. With the help of my academic writing, I want to show you and to prove you that the problem with the gun violence is one of the most global problems in the world and in America. I'm not the only one who thinks so. The United Nations also made some statements about that. Here we can see the popular artists who die from guns. The Notorious B.Y.G., Tupac, and XXXTentacion. Here we can see the statistics of homicides in 2017. We can see that 7,108 homicides was done with handguns. But why it is so bright? What laws the government should do to reduce these figures? Firstly, some people think that if you want to buy a gun, you need to have some documents for that, special documents for that. Also, if the buying gun should be like buying car. You need some special documents for that. But Professor Kevin Levitt doesn't think so. He thinks that people have so much old guns that is useless to introduce new laws, because it is impossible. Let's look at more statistics. Example, an international comparison of gun-related killings as a percent of all homicides. And why people do have so much guns? The reason of that is the Second Amendment of the USA Constitution. A person has the right to bear a gun. And for the finally, if you ask me about gun control in USA, it was the right democratic way or the biggest mistake, I will say to you that it was the biggest mistake in the history of the USA.
I'm from 7th grade of Vzmach school in the north. Today I'm going to give a talk on my academic writing about Boston Tea Party. I chose this topic because I have read about it before, and now I use the chance to learn more about it. The event goes back to the second half of the 18th century. The British East India Company sold tea from China in American colonies without paying taxes, which was a violation of American colonists' rights. American colonists came up with a protest action that was called the Boston Tea Party. It resulted in the destruction of a cargo of tea. In 1765, the British Empire was confronted with two issues: the financial problems of British East India Company and ongoing dispute about the extent of Parliament's authority. Britain introduced the Tea Act with high taxes. Although there should have been no tax for a colony without its representative in Parliament, the Act threatened to put some colonial merchants out of business. Protesters declared no taxation without representation. In every colony, protesters were able to force the tea returned to England. In Boston, however, Governor Thomas Hutchinson didn't let the ships leave without paying taxes. Protesters, leader Samuel Adams, called for a mass protest meeting. A group of up to 113 protesters dressed as Mohawk warriors boarded 3 English ships and threw a cargo of tea into the water. Parliament responded with a series of acts known in the colonies as unacceptable acts. But in February 1775, Britain adopted a conciliatory resolution that put an end to the taxation of any colony. Colonies in opposition to the Tea Act, which they believed violated their rights as Englishmen to no taxation without representation. The Boston Tea Party was the key event for the Revolutionary War. It was an important step towards the independence dream, which was resisted in the heads of each colonies. Thank you for attention.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Daniel. Today I'm going to tell you about my academic writing, Bowling for Columbine, school shootings in the USA and their reasons. My work is about film which shows the problem of mass shootings in USA and I'm trying to find ways how we can solve these problems. Okay, film Bowling for Columbine, directed, produced and written by Michael Moore in 2002. It consists of interviews and discussions between director and people who are connected with tragedy, teachers, relatives of dead, students and police officers. As well, the Oscar Award of the Best Documentary Film, Bowling for Columbine, received as César Award. You can see it on slide. Okay. On 20th of April 1999, Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold started their massacre in high school. They killed 13 people, 12 students and 1 teacher and hurt 23. After that, committed suicide in the school library. They would have killed more people if their homemade bombs exploded. This is not the only case, so there are 2 main reasons of mass murders using firearms. First is simplicity of purchasing fire weapons because of the Second Amendment of the US Constitution. And second is mental health. In USA, it's really easy to buy a gun. For example, in Florida, you need only to be 18 years old and have some money. Sellers don't check your criminal or mental background. And the second is mental health. It can be disease. Also, aggression can be provoked by bullying, maybe wish of revenge, or problems in family or some kinds of disorders. So there are not a lot of ways to solve problems with mental health, but to fix the problem in teenage, for example, you can take regular tests to check students' health in schools. It's clear that United States need to tighten and as for simplicity of buying fire weapons, it's clear that United States need to tighten the rules of getting guns. Governments can't do it immediately because there are a lot of supporters of Second Amendment, but once authorities did it and the results was positive. In Connecticut, they made background check for those who want to purchase weapons, and as a result, the number of firearms-related murders fell by 40%. In fact, slowly governments can tighten the rules of purchasing guns.
So, hello, my name is Lisa, and today I'm going to give a talk about my presentation called The Beatles, their history and influence in the world. So, firstly, I want to talk about music in general. So, in our days, everyone has the access to unlimited music, so people just listen it, then they happy, sad, or they just bored. So many doctors, psychologists said that music we listen to influences our minds, character, personality, and even health. So I think, but even if you live in our days, or if you were lived in 10 years ago, you probably hear about the music group called the Beatles, because they're just sounds like legends in our minds. So I want to talk about their biography a little bit. They next. Yeah. It's all. The Beatles started in 1957 from John Lennon, who invites his friend Paul McCartney just to sit together and sing songs. Then it became like a music group some way, and they invited their George Harrison and Stuart Sutcliffe. When members were changed, but in conclusion, fixed membership with John Lennon, Paul McCartney, Ringo Starr, and George Harrison and their manager, Bruce Epstein. They released their first album called Please Please Me. And firstly, people just saw at them like it's a usual group, but like in months, I think it was very fast. People started to see that Beatles is not just a usual group, because Beatles were so Beatles firstly was another looking. They were with their hair stuff, and they were good looking and they were funny, so people liked them. So they rise to fame started in Windsor in 1963. Beatles continued it by producing recordings. They sang on radio, and they actually started to have a big fan base, people who like them and support them because of their Beatles broke like stereotypes about music that days. They broke the barriers of taste, age, and everything. So the newspapermen they made a new word about it. They called it like Beatlemania. They had a lot of fans actually. They were. It was like a world shock about them, and a lot of magazines then said that Beatles had the world on its knees. Beatles starred in 2 movies, and they weren't. Their concerts weren't very. They had a few concerts, but it was the biggest concerts in the world that And then the Beatles repeat success and growing fan base in America, and in 1957 they had 5 places on Billboard, and yeah. After their appearance, they started to forgot about that they're a group, and so John Lennon finds a girlfriend, and he started to spend his music time with her. So Beatles started to hate her, and then the group was just about this woman, but it was one of the things. So the group started to disband, and in 1971 they decided to disband the group because they was arguing a lot, and that's it. So in conclusion, in this presentation, I wanted to answer the question, so what they did, what special they did, that people in 50 years, I think everyone now knows the Beatles, but there was this band 50 years ago. They was popular, I think, because there was not just all groups behind them. They wrote hundreds of songs in the time that most could only write a few. It's an interesting fact that in that time, music groups actually, they didn't write their own songs. They take ready texts and just sing them. But Beatles, they wrote their songs by themselves. They also were careful to avoid controversy, and they wasn't angry for their haters, or some people did. They were funny and good looking, and they used in their music, they used new instruments, not just classic ones, but something new and modern. People said that they don't change just music, they changed everything, because in fact our life now, it wouldn't be the same without them. That's all.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Ivan.
Hello.
I am a student of 8th grade. The topic of my academic writing is NASA Moon program, the history of manned lunar missions. I chose this topic because it seemed to me the most promising. The relevance of my work is that today NASA is one of the most popular topics to talk. The problem of my work was the question of how has changed a person's view of the world after a flight into space. Man was always interested in what seemed to him mysterious and impossible. Because of curiosity, people began to study space. I will examine what NASA has been doing for many years, find out how NASA studied the moon, how NASA plans to use their knowledge gained. Earth have only one natural satellite that is called the moon. Moon has this simple name because people did not know other moons before Galileo Galilei invented the telescope in 1909. From 1966 to 1968, the United States launched 5 lunar orbiter stations and the Explorer stations into orbit around the moon. Apollo is a NASA manned space flight program adopted in 1962 by President Kennedy. Apollo 8 and Apollo 10 were the most significant of the preparatory actions before the flight of all known Apollo 11. At June 2009, the American spacecraft later, another 5 flights of the Apollo spacecraft to the moon were performed. Samples collected by Apollo were used in scientific research. In December 1972, the United States lunar program ended. Moon exploration programs were phased out. Remote sensing of the moon from the lunar orbit was carried out by 2 American spacecraft, Clementine and Lunar Prospector. Thanks to the work of Smart 1 spaceship, the presence of calcium and magnesium was detected on the moon. And he also made cartographic studies of the moon. At June 2009, the American spacecraft launched vehicle Atlas, which confirmed that in the lunar polar regions lies ice.
1 minute left.
1
minute left.
Okay. The American spacecraft led EE launched a solid scientific program to study the rarefied atmosphere of the moon. In 2017, President Donald Trump signed a decree to resume the lunar program. The White House once changed the Artemis program in 2 parts. One part was that Washington sent only 1 module into the moon orbit and used it as a transfer point for moon expeditions. The task of the second part of the Artemis program, the orbital base will become a testing platform for preparing for the flights to Mars. The United States invited project participants to the International Space Station, including Russia. But after a series of events subsequent negativity between Moscow and Washington are at an impasse. NASA has been studying moon for many years. And even now NASA is moving forward and is about to explore not only the moon. Numerous flights into space gave mankind many opportunities for study, discuss, and it's opened up many perspectives. Thank you for your attention.
Good morning, my name is Maria Zabenka and I want to present you my academic writing called Bipolar Disorder in Famous People. Let's start with the content. I will start with what is bipolar disorder and symptoms. Then I will tell you about Vincent van Gogh, Stephen Fry and Demi Lovato. And let's start. Bipolar disorder is a mental disease, isn't very rare. There are three main symptoms of bipolar: mania, hypomania and depression. When the person have depression, they are very hopeless, loss of energy, they can have suicidal thoughts and deep sadness. At the mania episode, a person can have emotional high, they can do really nice things, they can be very happy. Then I said bipolar disorder isn't a rare disease, and it occurs in celebrities, such as Vincent van Gogh, Stephen Fry and Demi Lovato. Vincent van Gogh was a post-impressionist artist who created about 2,000 artworks. About his disease we know from his letter to his brother Theo, published in 1937. The other people aren't very rare about their mental problems. Stephen Fry, actor who played at Fry and Laurie and Blackadder, tells about his disease at TV program called Stephen Fry: The Secret Life of Manic Disorder. And another person who isn't shy is Demi Lovato. Demi Lovato is a singer who released 5 albums and 14 singles. She has 2 Grammy awards for any performance in particular genre. Now she is in campaign Be Vocal, Speak Up for Mental Health. In conclusion, I want to tell you that every person can get bipolar disorder, and but if you try to struggle it, if you can have a really nice and happy life.
Alright, good afternoon, my name is Tikhon Kharitonov, I'm the 8th grade student of Vzmach, and my topic is about Area 51. I choose this topic because I'm really interested in some kind of like mystic stuff and everything which connected with it. In my academic writing, I will try to get an answer, I will try to find an answer on the question, do we have to think about Area 51 as dangerous for humanity? Area 51 is the USA secret war base. Most of that place is under the ground and we just cannot see that. So that's why people think that it's kind of dangerous for us. This is like one of the mystic places on our planet, and it's like in Nevada. And I will try to find an answer, and I will start with the alien theme. For example, the first story is connected with the boy Bushman. This guy posted the strange video in YouTube in 2014. In this video, this guy said that he worked with the aliens and USA got some UFOs in 1951, but overall the only proof he used was like the picture of the alien, as you can see on the right picture. But in a week after this video, one Reddit user found the plastic toy of alien, which looks like as a alien on the photo, and then all the community saw that he just like faked the photo, and this story is fake. The second one is with Robert Lazar. In 1989, this guy had an interview, and in this interview he said that he is the engineer of the UFO, and after the crash in in 1989 he worked with the UFO and aliens as well. But after, in 2019, he came back in the interview and he said that he didn't have any proofs to prove his words he said, and so this story was like fake as well. Then now I want to speak about the Zone 51 as a military base. Here you can see the E-2 aircraft, which called spy plane. Annie Jacobsen in 2017 wrote the book, in 2011 she wrote the book which was about the Zone 51, the aircrafts and all the military stuff. And BBC made a special interview with her, and this was like a huge hype in the internet. And now I don't have the proofs to say that this is fake or true, but also we have one more story with this plane. So if we speak about the military base, I think that we can be like worried about it because we just don't have any proofs that they're not there or they're there. I mean aircraft, so like rockets or like maybe tanks and all this kind of stuff. And also I want to speak about some Photoshop photos, and you don't have to trust them just because I saw in the internet a lot of photos of the UFOs which was like fake. One website used the right photo of UFO for like as a proof, but this one is even from the game, so you just don't have to trust it. And that's how you can do like the fake news. So this is just from the game as well, and you just can put it on the newspaper and use it as a proof. That's all. Thank you for your attention.
Yes, good morning. My name is Vika Silverstova, and today I'm going to show you my presentation about XXX Tentacion. I chose this topic because I grew up on the creativity of this man, and I want to tell you what he achieved in his life and what happened to his career and fame after death. Childhood. Onfroy was born and raised in a family where it was considered normal to give little attention to the children. The bad influence of bad companies since childhood affected the future fate of the artist, and perhaps this is what led to the tragic death of the rapper. In school, Onfroy studied extremely poorly. His mother pointed her own son at the door. He didn't get along with his father and saw him every rarely. He was a street soul where he was most comfortable. My next chapter is about his career. José Dwayne Onfroy invented the pseudonym XXX Tentacion. He started his career in 2013 and after the release of his song News Flow. While in Juvenile, he met Stockley Cleven Colburn, another artist known as Ski Mask and Clump God. The same year, following their release from Juvenile, they met again, planning to commit another crime. However, Onfroy eventually bought microphone and began recording music with convinced Stockley Ski Mask to do the same. This is his albums, the most popular. At the moment he has 23 million subscribers on YouTube and 17.5 million followers in Instagram. Opinion of this rapper. So this is songs. In his songs he put his memories and his life. So this translates as like this. This is a little bit song.
Okay.
Yes.
30 seconds left.
On June 18, he left the Rival Motorsport dealership at about 15:55. Two armed men get out his car while he was sitting in the seat. Armed people stole a small helmet of Louis Vuitton and was shot several times at the rapper. Health workers transported him to the hospital where he was pronounced dead. So his work will always remain in my memory. So thank you for watching.
Good evening everyone, my name is Bobrova Daniela and the title of my academic writing is The Greatest American Writers of the 20th Century. As we can see from the title, there's a question: who were the greatest writers? So, my aim is to explain the situation which concerns how the 20th century influenced American literature, which genres began to prevail in literature, what books have become bestsellers, and why do people love them nowadays. First of all, 20th century was full of historical events. Life has changed enough, and along with life, people's interests have changed. Public at all times was interested in literature, and despite everything was hard in the 20th century, the world recognized many great writers. Okay. In the 20th century, writers began to use new literary techniques as combining different genres to which makes works a perfect novels for readers. Writers began to speak about serious questions of philosophy and psychology, also topics of revolution, war, and also the internal conflict of the protagonist became popular. Main characters of works became not so typical and predictable. In the first place is the vision of the situation of the protagonist, its inner world and thoughts. Two of the most important genres for the 20th century were realism and modernism, showing faith in power of words and progress, historical optimism, and abstract thoughts. For me, the greatest American writers like Ray Bradbury, Margaret Mitchell, and Ernest Hemingway are the most impressive, and I'm going to tell you about them. Okay, then. Write 1,000 words a day, and in 3 years you'll be a writer. Ray Bradbury was born in August 1920. At first, he wrote short stories full of psychological and dramatic moments, based on protagonist monologues and thoughts. Then were written such known works as Fahrenheit 451, Martian Chronics, and others. Lots may call Bradbury a science fiction writer. However, he didn't write much in this genre. Ray also changed genres in one novel from fantasy to detective story or a melodrama. This makes his works really attractive to us. Then, After All, Tomorrow's Another Day. Margaret Mitchell was born in 190. Margaret always was interested in cinematography, horse riding, and adventure novels, though she was suffering from depression. In 1926, she wrote a book called Gone with the Wind about civil war and love. It was dedicated to her husband. Mitchell wanted her main character, Scarlett, to be a really brave and clever woman. Margaret also wanted her work to be accurate in the history. She even interviewed participants of Civil War. This book became a bestseller, brought a popularity to Margaret Mitchell, and was translated into over than 25 languages. I love sleep. My life has the tendency to fall apart when I'm awake, you know? Ernest Hemingway was born in July 1899. Ernest was not just a writer, also a journalist. His parents wanted him to be a musician or a medic, but Hemingway's hobby was reading. He preferred not to study at university, moved and started working for a newspaper. Many events had happened in his life, from war to moving to France and becoming a world-known writer. In France, he met a famous writer, Gertrude. In 1926, he wrote "The Sun Also Rises," that brought fame to him. And in 1948, Hemingway moved to Cuba and wrote a kind of depressive but the greatest work, "The Old Man and the Sea," which won the Pulitzer and Nobel Prizes. Many people can say that his works are hard for reading, and this is understandable because Hemingway's life wasn't easy, and his works are full of hidden meanings. Well, in the 20th century, world has known talented writers. All of them brought immortal masterpieces to people to show a realistic situation in beautiful way of art. Modernism, realism, and science fiction strained the public at first, but now we can imagine our lives without such genres. Writers stopped being afraid to show the real world and with its problems and difficulties. This literature is showing us war, love, fear, desire for something new, rebellious motives, and many other emotional things. The 20th century literature is close to the real life, and therefore we're reading it from year to year. Thank you for your attention.